Do you want to play a bow build that actually doesn't fall over? I've got you covered right here. This is an update to my current Vaal Temple Farmer, a tanky bow build that still is a work in progress. As always, time codes will be below. I will post my current POB as far as that is relevant, but I'm still working on an ideal POB that I'm planning to post in the future, just kind of as a way to min-max and know what to strive for. But right now, I think I've got most of my tank layers sorted, which is my primary cause of concern, because as the title stated, or the title card stated, this is my VT farmer, my Vaal Temple farmer. This is important, because with Vaal Temple, you never quite know what kind of horrific combination of mods you're going to get and how badly they are super juiced, right? This is a very important part of the character needing to survive all of those randomized terrifying mods. And I mean every single bad mod in the game. We do not know which one we're going to get. So that's why I focused on my tank, and I think I finally got it focused. I'm currently level 97 without any kind of boosting or anything, just because I've stopped dying as much. I have started to level a bit more. It's funny how that works. It's still self-cast Caustic Arrow. The damage is a little too low for my liking, but it's because I am having some trouble crafting a adequate tri-ellie bow. I'm still missing some dot multi as well. And I think I can optimize the talent tree for possibly a second cluster. Who knows? I'm still working on it, but I'm very satisfied. And if you're looking for a tanky character or a tanky bow build that has adequate clear through the means of course, the explosions on any kind of Vaal Temple farm map, which means we are dealing with, of course, super juiced lower damage mods. Like if we have less chance to poison, our damage will sink, of course, or our curses are nullified, which means we're doing a lot less damage too. You can definitely find your path here. So let's talk a little bit about the gear, the potential upgrades, and kind of what I've been going for. And maybe you can guide me on a brighter path, or suggest some good stuff. Anyway, let's get into it. All right, so let's talk a little bit about the gear. Now, mind you, this is my Vaal Temple farmer. My priorities were tank and survivability over damage. Now, we just finished the survivability and tank aspect, and that is reflected in the gear too. Now, so right now my Pathfinder is 97. I expect maybe another 1 or 2 levels before I start to suffer severe brain rot. But until then, our current gear is as follows. We have the traditional tri-ellie bow. It's not perfect. We do have acceptable elemental mods. Of course, we want that to be tier 1 in a perfect world. A fractured high percentage with damage, because percentage damage is really, really nice for this build. As well as some poison hit, which allows us to have our non-caustic arrows be poison capped without needing Herald of Agony, which is very, very comfy. The dexterity is a dead mod, and we have some chaos damage over time. In a perfect world, we would get some attack speed here, and I think that would be probably best in slot, if not some additional arrows or some kind of mod like that, due to the fact that caustic arrow can shotgun and such, which is very, very lovely. But yeah, it's a work in progress. It's not a bad bow. It's not a great bow either. You know what I mean? I've been trying to craft a better bow with Rog and just myself, and I don't know how people do it. It's magic. It's a nightmare. I am more of a caster crafter than an attack crafter, and I will probably stay that way. It's a nightmare. Speaking of nightmares, here's an acceptable quiver. Great life, good flat, percentage LE, craft, attack speed, additional arrow, and a dead accuracy rating. So it's a pretty good quiver. Accuracy rating I would prefer to be damage over time. Obviously, that would have been best in slot. And that's pretty much the perfect bow we would want, except the base is wrong. I just sniped this one for cheap, obviously because it was on the wrong base, but we want something that gives us either additional arrows, that's probably going to be some kind of corruption or anything, or more flat damage, or percentage damage, which of course is going to scale very well if we ever increase the power of our bow. Now, in terms of the rest of the gear, our helm recently crafted, Pig-faced Bassinet Hybrid Helm, mana cost implicit, percentage fizz damage to elemental damage, of course, is also really, really good. Make sure it's the elemental damage that you have a flask for. In this case, it is the Topaz Flask, which of course is really, really good. That's why we're also super juicing it with the tincture. We have Hybrid Life and Tier 1, Tier 1 Hybrid Life and Tier 5 Regular Life, which is not ideal. It does end up being 86, which is okay. But yeah, you want, of course, a higher tier Flat Life on top of that. Percentage Fizz damage to fire, very, very reasonable due to the way that we're converting all our Fizz damage into fire, or trying to do so as much as possible. Spell Suppress, obviously. Mana Reservation Efficiency of Skills, speaks for itself. And we happen to hit a regen mod here, a tier 1 regen, which is why I settled. Regen is pretty good due to our boot, more about that soon. But I would have also settled for like a nice high chaos res, obviously. Maybe a rarity, especially this league. A rarity would have been really, really nice. Or just an elemental res for easier gear. Speaking of elemental res, managed to snipe this wonderful amethyst ring. Look at that. Tier 1 cold, tier 1 lightning, tier 1 all res, tier 1 rarity, tier 1 life. This is an incredible amethyst ring. I am planning to put some catalysts on this to boost that resistance even further, opening up some overcapping so I can maybe handle certain altars better, which is going to be really nice. My other one is kind of a similar sentiment. We got the rarity, tier 2 sadly, crafted life, which is disgusting. Tier 1 recoup, which is okay. Just something I hit. Tier 1 strength, definitely required. And of course the all res as well. In a perfect world, of course, better rarity, better life, and the recoup maybe into something else. I'm not sure yet. Other than that, yeah, I'm okay with this. Defiance of Destiny, a big part of our defense. Some good resistance rolls here. Acceptable missing unreserved life before hit by enemy roll. In a perfect world, we would get a corruption on this that might serve us better than increased mana regen. But other than that, yes, this has been a big part on how we have become more tanky. With our Whispers of Doom allocation as well, because we are using a double curse on hit. More about that soon. But in terms of being tanky, Lightning Coil, of course, is instrumental. It's a reasonable high-rolled Lightning Coil. I made it 30%. Just to facilitate the 6 linking, which was a nightmare, as people might remember. It's a good rolled one. In a perfect world, of course, we're looking for a corrupt on it, maybe a max res, maybe some life, maybe just socketed gems, or anything that could give us more value than we're getting right now would be a massive upgrade. May it be tank, may it be damage, what have you. But otherwise, I'm very satisfied with this. Speaking of being satisfied, Asenath Gentle's Touch. Curse enemies with despair on hit. Reasonable life roll. Reasonable intellect roll. Just for the double curse. Helps us clear. Helps us do more damage. It's just a wonderful tool to have. It does prevent us from having, of course, the Spell Suppress Mastery, but we solve that in a different way. The boots, recently recrafted them. Unfortunately, it kind of went wrong, but I salvaged it a little bit. I had to settle for tier 2 Spell Suppress. Still means I'm capped even while I am not at full life, which is very good. Of course, the Avoid Elemental Ailments on the suffix with the Life Regen Fracture. This allows us to, of course, super boost all the recovery mechanics we have in, or most of the recovery mechanics in their build. This is a big part of our sustain. Some crafted life, some rarity again. Would have preferred tier 1. Some movement speed with Onslaught, which is okay. I would have preferred movement speed when not hit recently, or extra movement speed when not hit recently. But I suppose now that I have this on boot, I could go for a different tincture. But anyway, yeah. The implicit, very important as well. Action speed, obviously, but the 26% chance to avoid elemental ailments, together with the suffix avoid elemental ailments with some stuff we have on the tree, including the gem, allows us to be ailment immune in a very, very powerful way, which is very, very comfy. So that's how we solve that. Of course, in terms of the flask, we have a max roll Taste of Hate, Instrumental, which is why I'm also buffing it with my Tincture, which is Rage. Tech I kind of yoinked from Garatha. Rage ended up being very, very good in quality of life, speed, and damage. We also went with Onslaught, but now that we have it on the boots, I might reconsider a Rarity Tincture here, or otherwise maybe some other good mods. There are some very, very powerful mods out there that are quite rare. I think I've even seen explosions and such, which is tempting, very tempting, but who knows. Alchemist Topaz Flask, it is pretty much permanently up while we're fighting as a result of course, the tincture and the mechanics we have on the tree, and as ourselves being a Pathfinder, reducing the mana cost of skills allows us to also have to pay less life cost due to the life tap supports. More about that in just a second. We have a A similar flask on the ruby, which gives us some regens. We're no longer using a life flask. I figured we needed to compensate a little bit with that. Henceforth, the ruby with regen. And of course, a quicksilver with some attack speed and the ability to generate some charges by just attacking. We are doing so many hits that plenty of those will be crits anyway, which will then give us plenty of charges, keeping us pretty much permanently sped up while we're juicing, or while we're fighting and such, even against single targets. Now, in a perfect world, I think I would go Progenesis on this. I think that would be very lovely, which would give me a bunch of Chaos Res, and that might mean I might even go into some kind of Onslaught rings, Onslaught on hit rings, or synthesized synthesized rings, some kind of insanity there. But until then, Quicksilver is a really good quality of life mapper. I'm not dying to the poison damage at all, partially because I have high Chaos Rest and I'm also having a Watcher's Eye that helps with that. So it's pretty good. This is my current gear. Definitely some good upgrades needed, specifically the belt before I forget. I do have the 50% Chaos Resistance during any Flask effect. That's really, really nice. Flask effect duration, Flask charges gained. This is a big part as to why we have so much Chaos Res and why our Flasks are up during mapping, or even during bossing against a single target permanently. It has low life. I crafted some damage on it. In a perfect world, I would settle for... I would want these suffixes on a micro distillery belt, or even just reduced flask charges used as opposed to flask charges gained on a micro distillery belt for more flask effect, which would massively buff our character. And then of course we can do the unveil with Chaos Unveil and go from there. But those belts are super expensive to make due to the fact that you have to brute force craft it, and I've had no luck so far. And micro distillery belts are also very, very expensive, so it's been a bit tricky to get anywhere. So anyway, that's the gear. Let's talk more about the gems and such. So the gems for this particular tanky bow build are surprisingly simplistic, but we'll go through them regardless. Right now, on the bow, I'm using my support arrows with Unbound Ailments. This is going to be a Woke Unbound. Vicious Projectile, this is going to be a Woke Vicious Projectile or a different skill. More about that maybe later. Life Tap support, obviously this helps with the Mana Forged Arrow support, because Mana Forged Arrow does not cost any mana with Life Tap, so it triggers off cooldown instantly, which is very comfy. Ice Shot, which is flat Ellie, another bow hit, which of course poisons with the tincture, and a Lightning Arrow with the same logic. There's a part of me that wants to turn Vicious Projectile into a third skill here, but I am not entirely sure if I want to do that. And if I am going through it, it's most likely going to be Storm Rain of the Conduit, which right now I'm using in my helm, together with Frenzy, the Life Tap, and the Mana Forge. I'm thinking about it because I might add an Enlightened at some point and maybe run Herald of Agony anyway for more damage and maybe some flexibility on the Atlas tree for poison hit, but who knows. Right now, this is my current support arrow setup. The primary setup, however, is Unbound Ailments. Still have to upgrade that to a Woke. We have Caustic Arrow of Poison, which is important. The Poison one, very important. It makes it not a channel skill, of course. Awakened Elemental Damage with attacks, still leveling that. Greater GMP. I like GMP over volley, because I don't have an Undying Sun yet. And it also allows me to kind of secure the shotgunning of my Caustic Arrow, due to the lack of AoE scaling that I have right now. But if you have a Dying Sun, not an Undying Sun, a Dying Sun, you might switch to volley if that's more comfy for you. We have an Awakened Vicious Projectile support right here, which is very comfortable. If you want to preserve more attack speed, I guess you could go with Awakened Deadly Ailments, but since Caustic Arrow is a better attack speed scaler than, let's say, Scourge Arrow, I have decided to go with Awakened Vicious Proj for just a bit more damage. Mirage Archer, of course, speaks for itself. It's just comfy, quality of life, and that extra shot does do hurt. It does do some decent damage on top of that, which is very comfy. And then we have the final gems are Aura's Haste, Precision, Flame Dash is our movement skill, and Malevolence. Now I want to add maybe an Enlightened here and then run a Herald of Agony. And then I have the gem sockets to do so, because right now our gem sockets and our boots are empty for more movement speed. This of course has to do with the Oath of the Magi. If you think, however, that this is too fast for you, you might, or or you don't mind. You could technically switch these gems in the gloves into the boots. This way you get a bunch more life as a result of Oath of the Magi. 25% increased maximum life, which is nothing to scoff at. Or if you're feeling very frisky, you can also go with the helm empty and then just get 50 all res. And that way you can run the altars much more sufficiently, which is quite good. Other than that, that's it for the gems. Let's move on to the Atlas tree. So when it comes down to the Atlas tree, it should be very familiar still, due to the fact that it's very similar to my Forbidden Rite builds. It's just a bow build as opposed to a casting build. Let's talk at the beginning, or start at the beginning. We have, of course, Master Toxicist, Nature's Reprisal, Nature's Adrenaline, and Nature's Boon. Nature's Boon is worth it right now because I have 3 magic flasks, but if I have a second unique flask like a Progenesis, I would drop Nature's Boon and just grab myself Flask Effect and Charges Gain, like a small travel node here. Now, it doesn't matter which one you're going to take. I would POB to see which one is more efficient in keeping your stuff up, but other than that, it is pretty self-explanatory. For the Wildwood Affliction Ascendancy, of course the Magi, we are taking the Coated Blade. This is mandatory, otherwise we don't have the Tincture. We also pick up Nature's Concoction because we are a weapon attack build, so we benefited from this gloriously. We are able to benefit on 2 flasks. We don't have a micro distillery belt, but once we have a distillery belt, we can, I believe, only benefit from it once, and then it's most likely going to go and stay on Taste of Hate or Progenesis if I were to pick that up. But until then, I just used those 2, my Sapphire and my Topaz. We do detect evil. I don't know. It doesn't really bother us to have it. Knowing where certain rares are is quality of life, but if you want to maximize your wisps, you can unspec Detect Evil and just take another minor node. And of course, the Oath of the Magi speaks for itself. It's how we get some additional movement speed for mapping. But if you want to have more tank, you can get the equipped gloves, socket free, or if you just want to have more all res for better gearing, which is what I did at the beginning a little bit, or alternatively, just want to have overcap to deal with the Eldritch Altars that might otherwise nerf you, you can just remove the sockets in the helm and then turn them into your boots alternatively. So whatever you need or whatever you prefer, you can do that. It doesn't really matter too much. You have that flexibility. Now, we'll start off very typical. Pick up the Dex nodes into Charisma. Of course, we pick up some additional Reservation Mastery because it helps us scale damage. And I had the excess points because I don't have a second cluster set up yet. We also have a Watcher's Eye right here, which is permanent haste, which is important. I just managed to sneak in a unaffected by poison. An unaffected by bleeding would be more appropriate for this build, since I still have to deal with physical degens awkwardly, and I am still not corrupted blood immune either, which is frustrating, but we'll get to it. Or, of course, if you want to maximize damage, the dot multi on Malevolence would be best in slot. Other than that, we pick up some dot multi on Wasting as well as the Chaos Mastery right here. It's not really mandatory, it's just I had extra points and didn't quite know where to put them as a result of the lack of the Chaos, or second Chaos cluster, or maybe an attack cluster. It is what it is. We do pick up Excess Sustenance. This is incredibly good for surviving. If you don't get one shot, the Excess Sustenance combined with Clever Thief and all the recoup mechanics makes it so that we are pretty much immortal, which is really, really comfortable. We also pick up some Revenge of the Hunted, just for some additional life. Obviously, we pick up Hunter's Gambit. We go through the bottom to pick up the chance on poison to hit with attacks, and the dot multi, together with an area of effect bow mastery. We might unspec this once we pick up the cluster, since we are running GMP and we can overlap manually our Caustic Arrow hits, so that should not be too much of an issue, but otherwise it's okay. It also increases the explosions, I believe, because it's increasing all your area of effect while you're wielding a bow, which is what we are always doing. We'll also pick up Careful Conservationist because we are a Pathfinder. Recover 4% of life when you use a flask is incredibly good, because even against a single target, we are still constantly charging our flasks, thus giving ourselves more recovery through that system. Let's go down first. Actually, let's go to the side. We are picking up a large cluster jewel with Unholy Grace and Unwavering Evil on the front. Very important, especially the Unwavering Evil, because we are running the Immutable Force and Blood Notch tech. Still running a low rolled here, or a mediocre rolled Blood Notch. I'm hoping to find a Corrupt Blood version of this to deal with that, but it's quite expensive, but it is what it is. Other than that, we are running 2 medium clusters, Brood for Potency and Spite Concoction. This, of course, is just more damage over time and flash charges gained for uptime, but also more importantly, Alchemist Genius, which is incredibly good. On top of that, we have Special Reserve. Just happened to be what I rolled. Just a little bit more regen, a little bit more damage. Not mandatory. The Brood for Potency certainly is. You could theoretically go for like a, I think it's like a damage over time cluster, and then maybe roll some better shenanigans. As long as you have Brood for Potency, you should be okay. Let's go further down. We pick up Inveterate. I picked up 3% additional Spell Suppress because I had the additional points. Of course, we have some extra Frenzy charges because we are generating Frenzy charges with our Mana Forge setup in the gems. Threat of Hope. This is a big, powerful piece. It allows us to unspec a lot of points and be more optimized with it. It allows us to pick up multi-shot. It allows us to pick up piercing shot as a result of using Caustic Arrow. If you use Scourge Arrow, this is not mandatory. In fact, it would be useless. We're picking up Master Fletcher for the additional arrow as well. Obviously, we're picking up Primeval Force for more elemental damage during flask and attack skills, which is exactly what we both are. So that's a 50% increased damage permanently for 1 point. Incredible value. We also pick up one with Nature, just to help with a little bit of all res, elemental damage, attack skills. It's very comfy. If you're overcapped and you need points, you don't necessarily need this. Quick Step, Spell Suppress, and increased movement speed, allowing us to be capped. We also pick up Aspect of the Eagle because it's the incredible value node. Look at all those stats, just beautiful. So, just wonderful things due to the Thread of Hope, saving us a tremendous amount of points, allowing us to indeed work in the cluster setup and work towards a second cluster setup, which is very nice. We do pick Acuity with a Accuracy Mastery together with Precision. This is pretty much all we need to have a 100% hit chance, if I am correct. Yep, 100%. We don't care too much about the second node. Pick up Herbalism for some more life. Obviously, we pick up Swift Venoms, go to the top for the chance on poison. Speaks for itself with a Crit Immune Mastery. Very comfortable in staying alive. So if you have a mod that, or a map that rolls into massive crit mods, not a problem. We are pseudo-immune to it as long as we're fighting. Of course, Entrench, more Spell Suppress. The Life Flask aspect of this, of course, is dead, but we need these 2 points to be Spell Suppress capped due to the fact that we have an Asenath, and we can't benefit from the Mastery that is evasion-based, which is regrettable, because that would be 15% we don't have to worry about. But we just pick up these 2 points right here, and it's fine. Because we're going to be in this area anyway, because we do need Thick Skin to become Elemental Ailment immune, together with the travel nodes, or the minor nodes from the wheel. That's the bottom side, very similar to my Forbidden Rite builds. Going to the top, we pick up Clever Thief. This allows us, together with the travel node, to essentially be always topped off on mana and help us sustain the life. As long as we're fighting, 10% leech is instant, just very comfy, not mandatory if you need points, but it does feel good. Pick up the entire 6% life wheel right here, including the flat 50 life, because life is good, life is awesome. That which was taken, this is very important. We have a Spell Suppress gem here, as well as the 22 chance to avoid elemental ailments. These are mandatory for this version of the build, where they allow us to be Spell Suppress capped, while also allowing us to have avoid elemental ailments. There are different ways you can do this. Of course, you could run the Vision, Ancestral's Vision, or a Storm Shroud and sacrifice a Flask mod, or you could run all kinds of other good mods if you find a different way to Spell Suppress, if you don't run like an Asenath or spend more points into Spell Suppression, or maybe you anoint something like Instinct to get a bunch of value there, and then you just manually spec into Whispers of Doom, which is the cheaper anoint. But it's entirely up to you based on what you can find, of course. This is the one that I happen to have. In a perfect world, I would also have the Poison Duration mod on this, Instead, I had, or wither effect. Instead, I just simply had to settle for increased effect of your curses, which does increase our duration due to temp chains and our damage through despair. So it's not bad, but it's far from the greatest. We go up to pick up Written in Blood for more strength, as well as the stun threshold is based on 60% of your energy shield instead of life, is mildly important because we are running the Immutable Force Blood Nudge tech, of course, for sustain. So this is mandatory to push that out. It's also one of the reasons we have not specced into Heart of Oak anymore, because that prevents us from being stunned, which of course counteracts our Blood Nudge and once again Immutable Force tech. So that's kind of why that is a thing. And since we're close to the top anyway, we also picked up Influence and another Reservation Mastery as well, just because it allows us to have a generous mana pool and run 3 auras, including a Precision that is level 21, which is very nice. 21 is not important, I just happen to hit that while farming. Now, as far as a second large cluster option goes, I am contemplating maybe going down here, picking up these nodes, and adding another Chaos cluster in, which will allow me to get a total of 2 additional sockets. This allows me to maybe get Corrupted Blood immunity for a lot cheaper, which would be very good. Or maybe it allows me to pick up one of those Flesh Flame Jewels. Who knows? I'm not entirely sure what I am going to do with that, if I'm going to do with that. Because right now, I just want to get my gear sorted, which of course is a work in progress. But, thank you all so much for watching. Hope this gave you kind of an idea of what I've been working on. You can always find me on PoE Ninja. I only ask you to, of course, hit that like button, subscribe if you want to, and come by the stream if you want to see live updates and just me ranting at the crafting system because it's so totally fair and balanced and absolutely not frustrating. Thank you so much. I'll see you guys next time. I'm out.